Welcome to another episode of the AI Lab Unfiltered podcast. I am Drew Veach from BizStream, joined by Pete Terryn from New Wave.
Thanks for having me, Drew.
I'm glad you could make it.
I appreciate it.
I love your generic background too. We'll work on that.
You told me the background was fine.
It's okay. So I want to open up by saying that I know we're in a more of a remote location than what we typically do, but we still use think tank thought leadership for our production. They help us with all of the editing. They help us with all of the post-production, all the graphics. They help us with all the socials. They help us with a release schedule and publishing. And that's a big one because when you go to Apple, when you go to Spotify, when you go to YouTube, that's where you're finding us. That is what they have been really great at, is being able to hit all the different channels and make sure that our podcast gets to you. So love it. We would love it if you'd like and subscribe and leave us a comment of what you hear. Tell us about how you're using AI in a unique way. Reach out to us. We love to have these stories and we love talking about AI. And today we've got a fantastic guest, Mr. Jonathan J. Tower from Trailhead Technologies. How you doing, sir?
Hey, good guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
So when we and I've known you for a long time, Jay. You're in the business of web development, solution software, same as us, and same as a lot of people listening. And we talked about a specific topic that you actually brought up: AI's impact on the future of software development, which I know a lot of us are looking at. How does it enhance us? What's it going to replace? What's it going to streamline? What's it going to make better? And the big question that you posed is, will human software developers go away? So I want to kind of dive into that and get your take on, what do you think about that? What are you seeing from an owner? You own a business, you're running, you got multiple people. What does that look like in your world?
Yep. Great question. You know, in the software development world, we're used to being the ones that come in and other people are worried about their jobs going away because of what we're building. So I guess it's only fair that it's our turn to worry about the future.
Great way to put it.
Yeah. So like any good engineer, the answer, I think, to the question of, will AI impact software development, and how will it do that, and will AI make software developers go away, is it depends. That's what every good engineer always says, right?
That's a nice, easy
That's
way.
what a politician says too.
Yeah.
Nice work.
So that's the end of the podcast. Right? That's all you need.
Thanks for like and subscribe.
No, so the slightly more nuanced answer is, obviously it's already having an impact on software development. I think the responses that tend to get the headlines, the clickbait, if you will, to this question are the ones that are the two extremes on either end. The AI sucks and it doesn't do anything right, and we're all going to be cleaning up this mess in a few years, is on one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is start updating your resume, because in 2 years 100% of us will be out of work. I think those are both wrong, so it's somewhere in the middle. But I think the people who should be updating their resume and looking at other industries are the ones who say, I don't really want to learn how to use AI to do my job.
Yep.
I agree. I think it's easy to say, well, of course it's going to enhance what you do if you let it enhance what you do. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of friends over the years, when AI, obviously AI has been around for decades, but when AI became kind of real popular and a heavier topic the past 2-3 years, I have had some friends that are writers and they're going, it's going to replace my job. And I said, you got to flip that narrative and say, you know how well, and this is a few years ago, as a content writer, you know how well ChatGPT even then could write content for you. Now couple that with someone who actually knows how to write, put the
Mhm.
power of that behind it, and now you got a powerhouse. That's what you should be selling, because
Yep.
that's going to be work far greater than just, well, I know how to write a prompt, I can get an article out of this. It's going to look like it's an AI article. It's going to be inauthentic. It's going to be fluff. It's a lot of fluff. So couple
right.
that with, now I've got the skill set that I can put into this and use this as my tool to make this into something that's going to be far greater of an
Yeah.
output.
It reminds me of, not to make everything a war analogy, but it reminds me of like my enemy has a more powerful weapon in their hands. And like, this is a thing that's happening to me. That's one perspective. Another one is let me see if we can get our hands on one of those weapons and reproduce it, improve it, learn how to use it. And basically now I'm the dangerous one because I have that tool. Right.
Exactly. And an improved version of it at that point.
Right. Exactly.
So where are you seeing, when you work with clients and you work with your team, obviously I know you have implemented AI technologies in the background that your team uses to enhance what they're doing, to help write code, to help build some of this out. How does that translate down into working with a client in their perspective of it? Do they know you're using AI? Do they care if you're using AI?
Yeah, there's a whole spectrum. There's some clients that maybe in 5 or 10 years they'll be like, "Hey, what's going on with you guys in AI?" And there's ones that have been asking from the very beginning, and everybody in between. And for anyone, I think it's possible that there would be very little that they would see. Just like they're not watching over our shoulders while in the past while we were typing in code, right? They're not watching over our shoulders while we're generating code. But the smart ones are asking questions about like, hey, like are our algorithms going to be in AIs, used to train future AIs? We sure hope not. Is our data exposed in any way?
Right.
Those are the smart ones right now, are asking those questions, and we have very well thought out processes that answer all of those questions in the best possible way right now. Which is obviously we are using AI to improve our efficiency. Just like I would not type with my eyes closed code in the past, like I'm not, typing with my eyes, quote unquote, closed to AI right now. And so we're trying to use it to help improve our efficiency, which basically means that for their dollar, they're getting more and higher quality things than they were getting in the past even.
And they're getting them faster in too, right? Like the turnaround time, the ability to mock up an MVP very quickly to, help solidify an idea that a client might have. Like those are all improvements that come from this rapid prototyping, right?
Yes, that's
like
right.
There's so many positives that come from this.
I'm sure you guys on this podcast have talked a lot about kind of the problem of the size of context when it comes to AI. And so because of that, and I can go into more detail on that if you think it would be helpful for your listener, but because of that issue, AI is really good at what we call greenfield, like new from scratch projects. And it struggles a bit more with very large existing applications, or what we call brownfield in the industry.
Yeah, I think that's worth diving into a little bit more, because it is, and I don't even fully understand it. I've tried to learn a little bit more about how the AI pays attention to only certain parts of that really large context and how that can skew your results. So I'd love to, if you could expand on that a little bit more.
Sure. It's just kind of an interesting side effect of the way that large language models work, that there is a limit to the amount of context that they can kind of hold at any time. And of course, that limit's going up, and it's going up fast. But what's also kind of interesting is if you're kind of more of this on the scientific side of this, the computer science side of it, you can kind of crunch the numbers, and there's diminishing returns. The curve goes like this, not like this. So as you add more context, it does not necessarily improve as much as it did last time you, say, doubled the context. So obviously, when we're talking about context in the case of software, we're talking about specs and we're talking about existing code, designs, like all these things could kind of be used as context for an LLM generating more code. And part of how they work really well, if you've ever played with any of them, Claude or GitHub Copilot or these types of things, part of how they kind of solve this problem is they try to do two things. They try to limit what they're looking at. So every time you ask GitHub Copilot a question about your code, you'll see it kind of it'll list boom, 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 all of the files that it's looking at in your code. So I think the first thing it's doing is basically looking at the structure of your code and deciding which things to zero in on as context. But then another thing is that if you've had a chat with it for 5 hours while you're building something, a thing it'll frequently do is it'll kind of pause in the middle of your conversation to re-summarize what's happened so far. And that's basically because what you've done so far, or what it's done so far with you, has gotten so big that it can't think about all of it at the same time. And so now it has to go through and create almost like a bulleted list of first I did this, then I did this, then I did this. This is what the guy is trying to accomplish that's using me. And at some point, I noticed diminishing returns on that for sure. The quality of what it's producing and the little details that I told it 3 hours ago that it's forgetting about, and then I have to retell it. It makes me basically, sometimes I close that chat. I'll just close that whole chat and start over with the context.
Really?
Like, okay, that is now all in the past and I'm just going to start over. And knowing how it works is what kind of enables me to know that that's the best thing to do and when it's the best thing to do, and that comes from experience, from using it.
Now, do you do that? Because that's an interesting workaround. Do you do that to then go, okay, I'm starting fresh. I'm going to kind of continue that conversation, start with a prompt of where we're at right now, and then keep going?
Yep. Yeah, and that's kind of what it's doing behind the scenes when it does that summarization, is it's basically trying to do that for me, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes that isn't working. And after I've seen that happen a couple of times and it's losing a lot of the thread, then I'll just be like, you know what? I think I can do this better, and just tell it where we're at and what we're trying to accomplish now and where we've come from and what I do and don't want it to do, which is sometimes a lot of typing, right? Like being a lazy prompt engineer is not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a science to the prompt engineering. And memory is so much a part of the conversation now around AI. It's going to be a hard problem to solve. One of the things that I read is they're trying to teach, some of these frontier labs are trying to teach the AI to forget certain things, like knowing what it can forget, like kind of like a person. For me, it's everything. Like I don't remember anything, but our brains are continually filtering out, the things that are non-important, that we don't have to hold in our own context, because we only have a limited amount. So we're trying to have the AI be more like a human brain and only hold on to the things that are important, like, taking your pills in the morning, or, making sure you show up to work on time and those kind of things. So you don't have to remember, certain things that are on the grocery list or things like that.
That's absolutely right. It's interesting how our brains work. And I think the more AI can sort of simulate that, the more useful and more human of a tool it's going to be in some really great ways. So like if you think about driving down your street and the color, if I asked you like, what are the colors of the doors of the 5 houses right before you get to yours, you probably couldn't tell me. Now, if you guess white and beige, you'd probably it'd be a pretty good guess. But you wouldn't be able to tell me. But imagine one of those neighbors suddenly got a red door and you're coming home from work. Now, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, somebody got a red door. So somewhere in your brain is the color of all of those doors because you notice the difference, but not necessarily accessible to you. So simulating that for an AI is an interesting exercise and one that we haven't figured out yet. But yeah, stuff like that's going to make it better.
It feels like our expectations for the AI are much higher than what the expectations are for humans. And I think people forget that humans make all kinds of mistakes, but we hired them into our companies all the time because they can do great work. And people want to poo-poo AI because it's not, it's not perfect. But yet, have any of us worked with a perfect person besides me and getting to do the podcast with Drew? That's the only perfection that I've ever really come up against. But we have such higher standards, and people want to dismiss it because it doesn't have that perfect retention. It doesn't remember all the door colors like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it feels like we need to get more comfortable with flawed AI for a while and get comfortable with that. I think a lot of people are. It sounds like you guys are. You're using it. Same with Bitstream and how you guys are using it there, and just continue to work towards better and better, and let it be flawed, let it make mistakes, and be okay with that.
Yeah, it's a great analogy, because if you think about hiring somebody new to your team, you don't know that person that well yet. So you give them tasks to do just sort of in the abstract. Like, this is a person that is in this job description, so I'm giving them these types of things to do that fit that job description. But then you get to know them over time and you realize, oh, they're really great at these things, and they kind of drop the ball every time I give them this type of thing.
Yeah.
And that's just humans, right? And I think that's an argument maybe to be trying and using the AI in your day-to-day as a developer or as just a human, because that's where you're going to learn and get to know that other, quote unquote person, and learn where they're good and where they're not good, and what's the best way to interact with them to get what you need out of them. And what we found is that AI is a huge performance improvement once you figure out how to use it correctly. Yes, at first it might slow you down, but it doesn't take very long if you're curious and determined to have it speed you up significantly. I mean, one of my business partners is talking about 10x, and I don't know if you guys remember the 10x developer thing that was going around on the internet a while ago, a few years ago now, before AI. So I think it's funny that he happened to pick 10 because of that meme. But yeah, it's true that before AI, there was a range of developers who were probably an order of magnitude better than others in the same community. And now, if you think about it, even those ones that maybe were only a 2x developer before, or a 1.3x developer or something, or like me, a 0.6 developer, now they've got this tool that's going to basically help them, speed up and elevate if they're curious enough to try it out.
So with your team and introduction of some of these tools and what AI can do to enhance development, how receptive were they to adopting those tool sets? Because I know from our experience and from talking with other shops, a lot of them are, I don't want it to replace me, so I'm not going to use it, versus, and that was early thinking. I think we're past that now. Not just internally here, but just as a human race, with how much AI's evolved and less hallucinations, and it is more accurate now. Even though we just talked about the flaws that come with it, but it's far better than what it was 6 months ago even. How has your team responded to, here's the new tool sets that we should investigate and try?
Yeah, a lot of very human reactions to it. So we've definitely, especially early on, we had a handful of people who were, I don't want to say scared of it, but like intimidated by it or something.
Sure.
We still have people today who are more interested and curious, and we have people who are less than those other excited people. And so you got this whole range, and trying to figure out how do you correctly motivate all of those people. And so we've incorporated some things, like we have a weekly all hands meeting that we do on brand. We call it Campfire, right? Because we're Trailhead.
Nice.
And at that meeting, we've added like an AI corner. And the idea is basically like there's always some sort of technical sharing that happens at those all hands meetings. But we felt like AI was such an important major foundation shift in our industry that it couldn't just be a every couple months somebody happens to pick AI as their topic that they want to talk about. We need to be talking about this every week.
Yeah.
And basically what happens is it's probably 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So it's like really quick, but it's always somebody just saying, look what I figured out. Like I used this prompt and I got a much better result, or I took this data that I got out of a system that was generated, and then I basically asked an LLM to look at the code and compare the data that came out of it and tell me if there was anything that was red flagged that maybe was like an edge case that we hadn't tested carefully for, or something like that. And so someone will just basically explain those scenarios and give like a super, super quick demo, but it's like a drip, it's a constant drip. Use AI, look what AI can do, look how much better my life is because of AI. And our hope is that kind of raises the level for everybody wherever they're at. And
I think it's twofold. I think you do have some people that are intimidated by it, and people that are going, well, I don't want to use it. I don't trust it. And then you also have if you keep talking about it and you keep bringing up different use cases, and that's literally why we have this entire podcast, is because Pete and I use it a certain way. You use it a certain way. I mean, even simple stuff like ChatGPT, we all use it in completely different ways, and talking about that and understanding, I never thought I could use it that way. Right. Now that just opens up even more for me. That opens up more solutions I can build through it, and more ideas just makes it a more powerful tool for me. That's and right. I think having that inside your company, regardless if you're a development shop or not, how can we use AI tools? What AI tools exist out there? We just talked about this on one of the other podcasts as well, where Pete even said, just kind of opens up that aperture of what's available out there. Might not mean we have to jump off and start using that tool or building something in there, but at least we know it's out there, and at least it just widens out what solutions are available and changes that mindset internally of where possibilities could even be to even start thinking about it.
That's I think what everybody should be doing is exposing themselves as much as possible to it through podcasts like this one, and through hands-on. Like that's always the best way to learn, right? But
I'm glad you clarified and talked about the podcast versus just exposing yourself.
Yes. Please don't take that quote out of context.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and that. We'll clip that out, and that'll
that's going to be one of our YouTube shorts. Yeah.
Everyone should be exposing themselves and then cut.
According to Jay Tower at Trailhead, you can find that.
Those conversations are with other people that are using it is great, because that's where you're like, oh, I hadn't thought of using it that way. And that's kind of the idea in our all hands meeting that we're looking for, is how are other people using this, and what can that inspire in other people?
Right. So let me flip the coin and say, what have you seen? And I know you're a Microsoft MVP as well, so you're privy to a lot more exposure to what's available out there. What shortcomings have you seen that are being hyped right now that you're going, yeah, that's just not here? Not just with Microsoft. I'm talking just in general with AI tools that they're being oversold, or they're being just what's the word I'm looking for? Just over
hyped or something.
Yeah, overhyped, and it's just not there.
Yeah, I was probably now 2 years ago, I was at a logistics conference, and I think every single vendor that was there, and this was 2 years ago, had AI in their name at a logistics conference, right? Where sometimes it's just how many miles is it from point A to point B, and how much gas is that, and how full is the truck, and so on, right? Like, do you need AI for some of those things? Yeah, probably. But is every single software vendor using AI? I don't know. Algorithms, I bet a lot of algorithms there masquerading as AI. So there's that. There's the extreme side that basically says AI is going to, take every job. So I certainly heard buzz from some organizations, and you've probably read the news stories too, about these organizations that are looking to replace huge swaths of software developers with AI. without digging into it, it's hard to say, but almost certainly, at least from those headlines, it sounds like they're thinking about it wrong.
Yeah.
As opposed to how could we get much more done? And then maybe 5 or 10 years from now, let's look at how we can get, if we're successfully getting more done, then okay, maybe we need fewer people running the AIs that are getting that stuff done.
And I know a lot of those, I know exactly what articles you're talking about. And I know a lot of those companies were over bloated with staff as it was, and it has nothing to do with AI. It's more of we're kind of right sizing it because we had too many employees for the products that we're kicking out. So, but we're going to call it AI replaced all these people.
Yeah.
I think especially for public companies, there's this thing that happens where anything that happens in the macro economy that you can blame on that thing is a great excuse to cut the extra people off the bottom of the organization without Wall Street and whatever getting all scared about it.
And then going back to kind of products that are overhyped, I remember years ago too when it's probably 3-4 years ago when AI, that term where everybody was using it, like it's a buzzword now, but it was even more buzzword back then because there's nothing behind it, not much behind it at that point that most people were using. And there was a dryer, a washer and dryer set that came out. And the dryer had a AI powered sensor to tell when your clothes were wet and when they were completely dry. It's all AI powered. It was a moisture sensor is all it was. It's like, let's not oversell my dryer. It needs to be connected to the internet.
Right.
And no, it was ridiculous.
Yep.
Yeah. When there's no agreed upon definition for what AI is, you can call anything AI.
Exactly.
If it's not an actual human doing it, then it's AI, right?
Yep. That's right. I was referencing that logistics conference and some of the vendors there. I mean, I think the temptation is right now is because it's such a great marketing thing to say that you're using AI, right? Is to basically say, this is a cool algorithm that we came up with. So it's AI.
Algorithms were the hot word before AI.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. But those organizations that are laying off a ton of people or claiming that they're going to lay off a ton of people and replace them with AI, I think they're not really. It seems like you said, Drew, maybe it's a smokescreen for something else. But if what they say is true, I don't think they're thinking about the fact that AI does not help you automate good judgment. Yeah,
exactly.
You need humans controlling it. And so, sure, are there going to, in the future, be fewer humans needed to produce the same software that we produced in the past with lots of humans? Yeah, I think that number is going to go down somewhat. But getting that ratio right, the right number of humans controlling the right amount of AI to get the output that you want is something that you can't just sort of hold your finger up to the wind and say I'm going to lay off 500 people.
Exactly. So when you internally, and I'm not trying to get to what your secret sauce is or secret process or anything like that, obviously. But when a client comes to you with, I'm looking for you to build X, Y, and Z. When you look at it, I got to imagine you're looking at it from a business needs viewpoint first, like that strategy first, because AI is just the tool that goes into it.
Yep.
But where is that intersection when you go, okay, now AI is going to be the right fit for it, and here's how we're going to build it? What does that kind of mindset process look like?
Yeah, great question. So AI right now, I would say, is kind of a ride along through the whole process. So even in those first meetings now, we're inviting AI note takers into those meetings, right? Because even the most attentive, well caffeinated human isn't going to consistently take notes for 8 hours straight of requirements gathering conversations, as an AI is going to just relentlessly take notes. Now, sometimes it summarizes things a little wrong, but you can, work around that and figure out. So you got to still pair it with a human, right? Somebody's got to go back and read those things and say, is this correct? Summary of what we talked about. But it's a better memory than I would have if I just had an 8 hours of conversation and didn't take notes, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Then those notes obviously feed into AIs in our process down the line. So summarize these for me. Tell me, what, I'm concerned about this particular technical aspect or challenging feature to build. From the notes, tell me what I should be paying special attention to in the notes when I'm thinking about this feature. And it might point out things that you kind of forgot about, like, oh, they said this other thing over here, and that means that we need to actually make sure that this takes, some sort of special security into account in this feature that we wouldn't have even thought of. And then we actually get to the implementation phase. Well, I skipped a step there. Pete was mentioning earlier, there's a proof of concept phase in a lot of projects, or MVP, whatever you want to call it. We find that AI is extremely helpful in that phase because it's all greenfield. It's all just, hey, I'm trying to prove out these concepts. Can you show me how all these technologies would fit together, particularly if it's something you haven't worked with before? AI is so much faster than going and reading the documentation and what SDKs are available for this. And I think I can connect that to that. And right, like it goes and reads all that stuff almost instantaneously. And it's just like, here, boom, this is how you would accomplish that. No, it's 90% right. So you got to still figure out those gaps, but it's still, I don't know, 5 or 10 times as fast as building a proof of concept by hand. And then there's the implementation phase where we try to ask it to do the right type of thing. So typing isn't cool anymore, basically, is how I would say that, right? Typing your own code. But editing code that was generated by AI is kind of how I would describe that process. So you very carefully describe what you need built, try and point it to all the right context. Then you very carefully look at what it did generate. And usually you're going to get at least 1.5, 2 times the speed.
And that part right there, it kind of echoes back to what I was saying earlier about the friend that I had that was a writer, that you still need that skill set of how to understand code, how to read code, how to see the ins and outs of it. So when this generates it, you can QA it properly to make sure this isn't correct or this still needs to be tweaked. Yeah. So again, imagine someone that knows how to build software and knows how to code, coupled with that firepower. That just seems to make it just much more powerful than someone that's completely green at it and going, yeah, I had 1 semester at college and now I'm just going to use AI for everything. Well, you just don't know the output of it, the quality of that.
Yep. Yeah, you still need the engineer there to tell the AI what to think about and what to be concerned about. That's that judgment that you can't automate I was talking about before, right? So like I'm the engineer. I went to a conference. I learned about microservices architecture, and I learned what that's good for and what it's not good for. And now I'm telling the AI, I have determined, because the AI won't probably unless you ask it specifically, I have determined that this particular set of needs that this client has are a good fit for AI, for microservices. So I've told it, let's develop this as microservices. Let's use this tech stack. Let's use, these patterns. Let's use these particular tools. If you don't explicitly give all those things, it's going to find the most kind of like average solution from the internet. And it may be what you need, and it may not be what you need. More likely, it won't be what you need.
Oh, to go back to when you were talking about that whole process of development, I'll tell a little bit of a story to get to my question. So there's a project that I'm working on. I'm super excited about it, and it's been very theoretical. And trying to explain it to people, they haven't been able to really fully understand what's up here. So I went to, anybody can do this. You can go to Google's AI Studio, and there's a build component to that. And you can either tell it through chat, or you could type it and tell it what you want it to build, and it will attempt to build that thing for you. This has got multiple pieces to it. It's got a dashboard and some different things in there. So I got it to build that, and now I can show people instead of trying to tell them what it is this thing is that I'm trying to build. And I would encourage anybody to do that. Are you seeing where people are trying to do some of that pre-work on their own using AI to prototype something and bring it to you and say, hey, can you take this and make this a real thing? Like take it the rest of the way. And so you're nodding your head. So yeah. So you're seeing that?
For sure. And as you might imagine, maybe you can validate this experience too, but we get also a range of experiences of people who think that what they just produced is the production software.
Yeah.
All the way down to people who realize that what they built is a proof of concept.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to everything we've been talking about here, is just that lack of knowledge. If you don't know how to code, you do think you just built the new Salesforce, right? But every developer in the world that would look at that and be like, this shit ain't gonna work. Like you got no security built in, everything's exposed. It seems nice, but let the adults take over here and actually make this a real thing.
Yeah,
I can totally see that.
It reminds me of if you guys ever play any of these like party games where like Pictionary and stuff where you do quick drawings, right? Like every once in a while, I don't know if you guys have done this before, but you have a friend who's in that group who's a pretty good artist and has some maybe training or experience drawing, and it feels like a cheat code, right? Like they're always
right.
They put down 7 lines on the page and you're like, that looks exactly like the thing it's supposed to look like. How did you do that?
Yeah.
Right. That's the experience and skill that and artisanry and whatever that comes with being good at something. And I think the same thing applies here to these proof of concepts and low code, no code kind of solutions that people come up with. They're good for very specific, maybe internal applications with a very small scope. And then they really fall apart when you start thinking about, what if I wanted to scale this? What if I wanted to have this be secure and public and so on?
Yeah.
The way I've felt like using some vibe code tools like lovable.dev, please sponsor us.
Please sponsor us.
I was, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it because I do not have a developer background. I do not have a clue how to read code as far as like an engineering type level. And just being able to work through that and build via prompt, it gets, like you said, it does a decent job of proof of concept or an MVP or a very small, light, simple app. It'll get you 85% of the way there very quickly. It's that other 15% is where that is the I don't want to say deal breaker, but that's where the rubber hits the road for you really need to know your stuff. You really need to know how to expand this out because it takes way more time on that 15% than it does that 85. 2 prompts, you can have 85% of the way there. Now you're going to put in an enormous amount of work to try and get that last 15%, those details in the other end of it.
That's right. Yeah, for very contained problems with a small scope, I think stuff like that is really great. And it, since the beginning of my career, so even in the 90s, there was people talking about tools that were going to basically make citizen developers. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember 4GLs, 4th generation languages is what it stood for. And it was supposed to be this like people will just describe what they need and the applications will just write themselves.
Yeah.
And there's been just, one technology after another that I've seen in my career that's been that. And right now, low code and AI are the combination of things that are claiming that. And it's never been easier to do a proof of concept and create a small utility that's really useful for internal use and all of those types of things. But there's also this meme out there, which maybe you've seen, that I think is also apt, which is now with AI, one developer can create the tech debt of 40 developers. There's also that, right? So like if you don't know what you're doing and you have maybe your vision is set a little bit too high and you're like, I'm going to create the next, Drew, you said Salesforce, whatever it is, the next SaaS thing that everybody's going to want to use. That's probably a little ambitious for a tool like that.
Right. So looking forward, before we wrap this up, I want to ask you from your perspective and everything you've seen, everything you've tried, where do you think this is going to go? Like, if you could look in the crystal ball, look into it and say, in the next year, this is where we're going to, in the next 3 weeks, this is where we're going to be, just how fast this stuff changes. Where do you see this going in the future for web development?
Yeah. Great question. I think the general arrow of things is that people who are using AI will be the useful developers, the productive developers. People who don't, there's going to be less and less need for them. I think the people on the other end of that spectrum who say this is all going to, we're all going to need to just, be able to just paint pictures and we don't need to work a couple of years from now because AI is going to be doing everything for us. I think they're also kind of extreme in the sense that what I've seen over my career is that while technology develops really quickly, human organizations evolve really slowly.
Yeah.
Right. So believe it or not, there are still organizations that are getting rid of mainframe code and moving it to web applications, right? Like here we are, how many decades, 3 or 4 decades into modern software development, and that stuff is still happening. So there will be people who don't use AI, who are maybe in the first quarter of their career right now and won't use AI all the way until they retire. Those people exist, I think, and some of them will keep a development job that whole time. Now, there won't be nearly as many of those jobs 5 years from now as there are today. So if you don't want to be fighting for those jobs, or let's be honest, those are going to be the jobs that are at the least desirable companies with probably pretty middling to low pay, right? So if you don't want to be fighting for the scraps like that, you should be upskilling on AI, making sure that you're staying relevant, making sure you know how to use the tools to make sure that you compete more evenly with the people who are out there using it.
That's good advice.
I agree. That is good advice.
So, Jay, I appreciate you being on. I've been wanting to get you on this for a long time. And I know we've done other events together. You've been panelist in speaking from a ton of different events that we've been at and been in the same circles for years. So I really appreciate you being on here and giving us your advice. Tell our visitors, tell our viewers where they can find you.
Sure. So I'm on all the social medias as Jonathan, and then in quotes, J Tower. I'm also J Tower at trailheadtechnology.com if people want to contact me. Find out more about what we do at Trailhead at trailheadtechnology.com. And we're also on all the socials.
Awesome. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for being on. And we look forward to seeing what you're building in the future.
Yeah, it was a fun conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Like and subscribe and leave us a comment. See ya.